Hey everybody, it's Mobius Y here with another World of Tanks console video. Today we are doing another map drive and we are taking a cruise around Westfield this time. Westfield is one of those maps that's been around for quite some time and undergone some changes, and yet I keep seeing people do dumb shit. So please, if you want to not do dumb shit anymore, or if you want to simply direct people who keep doing dumb shit to this video, that would be fantastic. So let's go ahead and change the mini-map here. Okay. Now before this starts, whoops, wrong button. Before this starts, the key thing here is from about this corner to this corner and everything square in between, from about the G line to the 7 line, basically, in that big square. Okay? That is 70% of the map. Alright, so if you hold that part of the map, you control the majority of the map. And when your team controls the majority of the map, you tend to win the game. You get so many people going down into this area here and brawling out in that section that has been changed with the last update to Westfield, and it's kind of understandable why. It's a much easier corner to fight on, and it's harder for artillery to really hit you there. But it's just dumb, because if you're coming from the north side down this road here and you wind up in this part, you're going to get sniped at by campers and TDs over here. And if you're coming from the south spawn like I am, and you go over to this corner, you're going to get sniped at by all the campers and TDs over here. It's just what happens. And besides, the general gist of how the game goes is after people spawn, you get tanks that come up into this area over here. You kind of fight it out from about A1 over into the town here by E5 roughly. And whichever team wins this top area, that basically gives them the freedom for their forces to close in on the flag and either put cap pressure on or simply start flanking all the snipers that are over here in this area, as well as position themselves at the edge of the town over here so that they can get side shots at anybody who's visible over here. Still lit up for them to shoot from really far away. So the key to Westfield is control this top area here. You want to grab these hillocks here in this section, C3 and B2, and you also want to be controlling the town area that stretches from D4 to F6. Those are the areas you want to control, and now I can't ping the map anymore. Figures. So the main area where a lot of ridge fighting is going to go on, this is where you want to bring mostly tanks with decent gun depression. You want to bring them up into these kind of ridges here. You see this one that I'm sitting on goes from the very top left corner of A1 and it stretches down towards the town there. So it kind of splits this area in half. There's also 3 little hillocks, this one here, and one here, and one right here that I just shot at. Those 3 little hillocks can also be used as natural cover. And there's a lot of fighting that needs to go on in these areas. So if you have good gun depression, and it has to be good, like 8+ degrees of gun depression, you can poke these ridge lines and use these hills as natural cover. If you don't have very good gun depression, there's still some flat zones in between the little hillocks, like right where I'm driving on, where this little pathway is, where you can still poke out and use your peekaboo tactics around corners. Keep in mind, though, that if you are using this area when you have lower gun depression, you are still quite vulnerable to getting shot in, say, your lower plate or even your side armor if it's exposed. Now, the biggest downside of this whole area up here is that it's very prone to getting blasted by artillery. These hillocks, this ridge line, they're not very well sloped, they're not very high, so it's easy to get absolutely bombarded by artillery if artillery is in the game. I think that's part of the reason why so many people don't really like going here. However, if artillery is bugging the piss out of you, or you simply don't want to bother trying to simulate your gun depression using the terrain up there in those hillocks, you can come down to the town area down here where it's a much more level kind of terrain, it's much more flat, and it's way more ideal for brawling tanks that don't really have good gun depression, but can sport some really good frontal or side armor profiles. So if those hillocks are just not for you, there's lots of buildings in here where you can position yourself and just kind of work the corner, help out your team as best as you can. Keep in mind that you really need to be paying attention to what's going on around you when you're in this area, because sometimes if your team is not holding this part of the map down here around the town, you can get some people flanking around through that part of the town down into here and getting behind you if you're in the south, or even going over to here by the bridge, trying to stay unspotted from the snipers that are way over here, and try and get around anybody who's trying to use these buildings. But essentially what happens is one team wins it up over here, more or less. If their force pushes through up here in the hillocks, it's much easier to swoop around into the town area, get ass shots on people in the town area, and then just press on from there. As I said, you either press on to the base and try to put some cap pressure on them to draw people away from the sniper ridges in this location or in this location, or possibly just to go for the win if your team simply can't brawl it out and win it the normal way. Now, the two sniper or camper locations, as I always refer to them, they're just over here. Oh, by the way, there's a nice little kind of pathway down this side here, if you didn't know that. We're going to head over to the north side kind of sniper location here. It's just on the other side of this bridge. Now, I personally have always really liked Westfield because it's not one of those cliche corridor maps like you see all the time on, say, Abbey or Cliff or Karelia or even any of the city maps such as Himmelsdorf or Ruinberg. It's not one of those corridor maps. There's lots of room to maneuver. There's lots of room to flank around and just get in a good position and reassess the situation and whatnot, especially in that northwest corner there, which is so key to basically winning this map. So here we are on the north side camper ridge or sniper ridge, however you want to call it. You're going to have some people lining up in this area here. Where I'm sitting right now. You can use this terrain as natural cover, and it's a lot easier for you to get shots from here if you don't have very good gun depression because it's fairly level as you get to the top. Just keep in mind that you do kind of expose yourself quite a bit as you poke over the top of the ridge. Now over here is another nice little kind of ridge at the top of the cliff where you can set up possibly some light tanks for spotting or possibly some really well camo TDs to do some additional sniping as well. You also have this little corner here that you can poke around if you don't really have very many forces going down into this area. You can have somebody kind of post up here, possibly a heavy tank or something, that can really hold off people from pushing over this way. And with the support from the sniper ridge behind you, you can hold off quite a sizable force from this area right in front of us because it is a very open space that they would have to cross in order to make a big push on you. And if you have even 3 or 4 or 5 guns behind you supporting you when you have just one heavy tank or even a fairly decently armored medium tank just sitting right here and baiting shots and playing peekaboo and any stuff like that with any aggressors from the other team, you can really put some serious hurt down. They're not going to really push that far without taking some significant damage from exposing themselves. Now over here is actually kind of the route that you want to take if you're trying to push on the enemy sniper ridge or camper ridge. You kind of want to take this route over here that I just crossed through in the very bottom right corner for several reasons. One, it protects you most of the way until you come around the corner from anybody that could be on those ridges. For example, from the north side, nobody over here would be able to get a shot on me. And from the south side, if I'm coming down from this side over here, nobody in this area can get a shot on me until I round these corners, basically. So that's kind of the route you want to take when you are making an aggressive push over here. It also protects you from any snipers that are actually setting up trying to get side shots over here in the town area, kind of by those buildings or on top of that big cliff over there. You're pretty well protected from there as well. But it's not as... it's still just not very artillery safe, is what I meant to say there. Now you've got a little ridge here that can be used as a piece of cover if you're trying to make something happen and get a nice push going on towards the enemy sniper ridge, and you're not too worried about getting shot in the side there because nobody has any enemies posted up there. Just keep in mind that the natural cover right here on the top of this ridge line that is protecting you from shots into the town area, it's not very high, so you don't really want to go there if you have a high profile tanks. A tall thing like an E100. Well, to be fair, you really shouldn't be bringing an E100 over there anyways, period. So that would be more of a spot for a low profile scout or a medium tank or something like that. Now on the south side, this is kind of where the snipers will probably be setting up, or right on this corner here where I am, you'll probably have somebody setting up to try and hold off the advance from the opposing team. You can look across here, there's quite a bit of open space from their sniper ridge right over in that direction that I just shot at. Fair bit of open space aside from that one little piece sticking up there, so you could have a tank being super aggressive and ballsy in that location there, but chances are you'll have most people coming around to the back side over here in the very bottom right corner. So they'll be coming around right over in that area. You got a nice piece of natural cover here from shots coming from that location. If freeze will get the fuck out of the way. But even this spot is pretty exposed to artillery if you do get spotted. So the support that you're going to get from any of your snipers that are being set up, they're either going to be poking over in this area here, and you probably don't really want to do that if you don't have a TD or a sniper kind of support tank that doesn't have good gun depression. If you don't have very good gun depression, you kind of want to be a little further back, say about in this area here. Now the problem with being this far back is oftentimes enemies right over there on the far side of the bridge, they might be just outside your render range if you're simply too far back. As you can see, where I'm actually aiming to, just at the top of that ridge, it's just under 550 meters, basically in that range. So you probably will see tanks that are over there in that render range if you're at this distance. But if you're kind of hanging out way back here, more on the checkered line kind of thing, not only is your view much more obstructed, but you're pushing about 600 meters in order to see any enemy tanks that are on that ridge over there. So this very well could be too far back. You want to try and make sure that they are within your render range and that you can see them. Now, the people that are hanging out on these sniper edges that go to this very southeastern corner down here, they tend to be the ones that survive the longest, because it's just a straight up kind of corridor sort of fight going on here, and artillery doesn't usually look this way. They just don't really have if artillery is sitting up here in this corner, for example, or down here in this corner, they don't have very good shots into these areas as they do over here into the northwest corner, where the majority of the fighting should be taking place. So chances are you won't really have to worry about that too much. Sorry, just bumped the desk. But you know, it is still something to be cautious for. Artillery can definitely still rain down on you from way over there. What the heck was I going to say? I can't remember now. It doesn't matter. Anyways, a lot of this map has changed where you can now just easily traverse from the cliff tops down into this kind of valley area. Now, the valley is simply an area that I don't really recommend anybody go down, so to speak. If you intentionally push down the valley area and the other team spreads themselves out fairly evenly, you're probably not going to encounter any of them in the valley. You're basically going to be giving up the high ground. Any tanks that get up onto these sniper ridges here, or possibly even here, and if they get any tanks up into this town area at the very top of the cliff over here in the kind of E6, F6 area, they're going to be able to easily range shots down on you. And that's just not good whatsoever, because they can go nice and hull down, leaving only their turret for you to shoot at, which will likely mean that you don't really have any chance of dealing damage back to them. But also, they'll be able to, for example, shoot the top of your turret or something like that, or shoot the top of your engine decks, things like that. Basically, where armor is extremely weak on almost every tank in the game. Turret tops, the top of hulls where engine decks sit, you know, stuff like that. As you can see from the very edge of town where I am here. Now, while I could very easily get spotted for doing it, I could also very easily poke down and see a tank poking this corner here, try and get a shot in their side armor or something like that. So it's very easy to just make mincemeat of anybody who goes down into that valley area. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll see people who actually push down valley and they have a pseudo-successful push or something, or they just hold out for a while, but it's simply not really what you want to do all the time. If you're in a big kind of super heavy tank, that's probably the worst place to take your tank. A big tank like an STI or an E100 or something like a T29, maybe not a T29, but like a KB1S or a KB220, you kind of want to bring them up here into this top area and just kind of support by going into these buildings here. You don't necessarily have to go into the town. If you want to stay close enough, you can go into these buildings, just on the edges of just on the edge of these ridges, say over here, or possibly in the sector in between here. That way, or sorry, not that sector, right here in D4. That way, you're close enough to these hillocks where if the fight's going kind of badly over there, you're close enough where you could just quickly reposition even a slow heavy tank to support the fighting that's going on the hillocks. So I think that about covers it. Nothing super fancy about Westfield, guys. It's just, you know, come up into either this area here or this area here. Win in those areas and you should essentially win the game because you'll control most of the map. This is more of the map than it does. Like, if you control this bottom right corner, you control about 9 grid squares on the map, right? But if you control this part here, you've got about 36 grid squares of map control right there. And it's a lot easier to shoot down into people trying to cap your base from up here in this area here or this area over here even, if possible. So that's basically it for this map drive. Just like to give a big thank you to my clanmate Private Freeze, fellow Immortals member, for cruising around and doing nothing the last 15 minutes, allowing me to do this map drives. Hope you guys found this video very informational and helpful. This has been Mobius Y. Thanks very much for watching. As always, I will see you on the battlefield. Happy tanking.